Hello YouTube! Today in the Naughty Librarian I'm going over my mid-March wrap-up. So far in March, I've been reading more than usual, which I've been proud of. I mean, we've all been stuck in our houses a lot more often, so I think that might have been a contributing factor. But I did manage to read 6 books. In this review I'll be going over 5 of them because I did review one of these books already in a different video, which I will link in below or in here. It'll be linked. You'll find it. Moving on, let's get into the other books I've read so far in March. First category is sci-fi, and I read one of those. I read Salvaged by Madeliene Roux. I had a really unique reading experience with this one because for a long time I wasn't sure if I liked it. It took me a long time to get into it. And a lot of it I wasn't super impressed by because some of it I had seen before, but then by the end I was like, that was well written and clever. So it pulled itself together at the end and I really liked it a lot. But for a long time I was really wondering whether or not I liked it. But by the end, I really liked it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I thought it was pretty good. Basic gist of the story here. We're following Rosalind. She is running away from her family, who's a very powerful kind of tech magnet in this world. And she's run off. So she's in space now. She's basically a space janitor. She cleans up after failed scientific experiments in space. So basically she's biohazard. And she deals with a lot of gross stuff. A lot of bodies that are now puddles instead of bodies. So that's how the book starts. There is a gore factor here that if you are uncomfortable with gore, you are going to not like this because there is quite a bit, actually. It's kind of gory. One thing leads to another. She ends up getting assigned this new job to go to this ship called the Brigantine, which has been reported code blue. Everyone on board's dead. Go there, clean it up, bring the ship home. La 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 la. Business as usual. Except she gets to the ship, and wouldn't you know that the crew members are not dead? They're kind of alive. And I say kind of because they're actually all now hosts for an alien parasite. So it's kind of space zombies we're going into here. And this isn't like a benevolent symbiotic relationship with this space parasite. It's nasty. If you perhaps have read The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey, it's a very similar type of zombie situation here. It's kind of a mold and a living plant-like fungus type situation parasite. And so things get gross. There's a lot of body horror going on here. I'm sorry, again, gore warning. There's a lot of gore. So a lot of the story is about uncovering what happened to the crew members and then also trying to stop this from happening to more people, fighting back against the people who made this happen. So you're getting into general sci-fi adventure horror story type of deal. And that's all well and good. And I mean, the book would have been fine as it was. However, I know I've said the word space zombies, which seems like a big part of the story, but realistically, the story actually kind of isn't about space zombies. And this is the part where I wasn't sure if I liked it or not. Basically, this whole story is a big allegory for regaining your own autonomy and getting your life back after dealing with trauma, in particular sexual assault. So our main character is finding herself again after suffering this trauma. And so it's kind of a big allegory of recovering from sexual assault and trauma and finding your own autonomy again, by fighting space zombies. And when at the end of the book, when everything kind of came together, that is just brilliant, actually. I thought it was actually so well crafted then. Everything came together beautifully, and it took a while for everything to really come together, for that analogy to really settle. And by the way, this whole analogy is not really a spoiler. It's quite apparent from the beginning of the book that she's running away because of trauma, and they never show the scene of what caused this trauma, but it's clear. So this isn't really a spoiler. But it's really, really cool. I genuinely enjoyed it. So I had space zombies and this big allegory. And yeah, I kind of really liked it. I thought it was very clever. But for a while, I was hit or miss with it. But it really redeemed itself by the end, and I really liked it. So I do recommend. I ended up giving it 4 stars, but that was pretty good. Next category is fantasy, and I read 5 of them. I pretty much read fantasy, and only fantasy. First things first, I read The Midnight Lie by Marie Rakowski. I absolutely loved this. However, I did give it a full review in a different video. I will link that up there and down there. You can check that out. But a basic review for the purpose of this video, just in case that video, you're not gonna go watch it. I absolutely loved it. It is, it's just wonderful story, and I really like Marie Rakowski in general. She is the author of the Winners trilogy, and this is a book that happens in the same world, however, about 20 years later. So those 2 stories aren't exactly related, but they do happen in the same world, and there's some Easter eggs. So it is a fun thing if you've read the Winners trilogy to come into this. However, this could be read as a standalone, and it would be just fine. But basically it's about finding yourself and magic, and there's also a character who is a female rake with a heart of gold, and I'm like obsessed. So yeah, it's I loved it. I'm not gonna give more details. I gave like a 10-minute review of this. Go watch the other video, but I loved it. I can't recommend enough. It's really, really good. It is YA, I would say. I could definitely put this in the YA section. However, it does read as perhaps older YA. I wouldn't say this is maybe targeted to 16 and up rather than under 16, because just the content of it seems a bit more complex and adult related. So I would say this is more of a crossover novel. Very good for adults, very good for YA as well. But yeah, I loved it. I freaking loved it. I loved it to bits. I also read Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This one was highly recommended to me, so I did want to try it out, and I genuinely really enjoyed it. I think I gave it like 4.5 stars. I thought it was really well written. The basic idea here is that it's a really loose Rumpelstiltskin retelling, like real loose. They have the whole idea of, you know, making gold out of nothing here, and that's kind of where the allegory ends. But it's like a loose Rumpelstiltskin retelling, except it's set in medieval Russia and also has ice fae. Most of the time we follow 3 perspectives, and these are 3 main female characters. However, the book does shift perspective at the drop of a hat. So there are more perspectives than just those 3. Occasionally you get someone else, and then this other person, and then that other person. So the perspective changes without any notice a lot. And I have heard people find that to be really confusing and unsettling. I kind of didn't have a problem with it. It was abrupt, and you're like, oh wait, who is telling the story right now? And you'd have to read a little bit to figure out who was telling the story. So it was a lot of like perspective switches. Like almost too many that it was a little off-putting. Like I was saying, this takes place in medieval Russia, and the main character, Miriam, is Jewish, so it has a Jewish family. And most of my like genetic makeup is Italian, and then I also have a dash of Russian Jew. And I remember being a little kid with my grandpa, and he would have his menorah out during the holidays, and me just going, well, why don't we light all of the candles like every day? Like, let's go ham. And like my grandpa being like, no, like you're not supposed to do that. And I'm like, but can we do that? Because you know I'm a little kid and excited by fire. And he's just like, fine, all right, let's get candles. And like just putting up with me. So like this story just having these like this Russian Jewish family and like how they react to things and like their sayings and like the foods they're eating, it just felt like my childhood a little bit with my grandpa. So like part of me, it's like part of my backstory where I felt like, oh my gosh, like I remember that. So I think maybe uniquely I am like accustomed to this book. It just kind of got me in the warm fuzzies because it just made me remember my grandpa and like all that fun stuff and all like the particular like foods he was into. So yeah, it was like, it was warm and special for me, and I really enjoyed that. It kind of took me back to my childhood at points. So I don't know. I don't know if anyone else is going to relate to that, but at least for me, it got a lot of things really correct. And considering this is medieval Russia, but a lot of like the way that they relate to each other and talk to each other and like the way they think about things, it just reminded me so much of my grandfather. So I had a nice time reading this. Like I was saying, mainly this does follow 3 different perspectives. You have Miriam, you have Wanda, and you have the other one. Oh no. I'm gonna call her the other one right now because I'm blanking on her name. I don't know why, but it's just gone out of my brain. So you have Miriam, Wanda, and the other one. And they're three different girls from three different backgrounds, and they all, basically all of their fates are kind of combined into this one thing. There's Ice Fae, who are screwing with humans, and they're like, we gotta stop that. And then, like, the king is also a demon, and they're like, well, we gotta stop that too. So it's kind of all three of them teaming up and showing that they're stronger together. And then, like, it's a lot of girl power, especially in this time period where women didn't have a lot of power. So I really enjoyed a lot of this. I thought the storytelling was excellent. There's a lot of cultural things that I was connecting to hardcore. So maybe if you aren't of that culture or you haven't experienced that culture, just know, like, this is, like, good. It's really accurate. And I really loved it. So yeah, it's like a really well-crafted fantasy story, honestly. Like, it feels like a fairy tale, but for grown-ups. And I had so much fun reading it. It's 4.5 stars. Again, it goes with my cultural background a little bit, so I did have all these warm fuzzy memories while reading it, so it might be unique to me. But I mean, it's Naomi Novik. Like, she's been around for a while. Like, people like her books. So I don't feel like I'm unique in this situation of liking this. But I did find it really, really good. And it was kind of like loosely Rumpelstiltskin. And like, I was like feeling it. I was vibing with this book hardcore. It could have been streamlined a bit more because, like I said, there's perspective switches all over the place and like random characters all the time. However, really good, and I really did enjoy the story and it was good. I liked the conclusion. I had a good time with this. It was fun. It could have been streamlined, basically. I also read Ashlords by Scott Reintgen. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. This is kind of a DNF, and it's bad to say that. I got to about like 60-65% of the way through and just really didn't care what was gonna happen. So I did skim read the rest. So I do have a basic idea of how things played out in the end here. It's just, here's the deal. It's not a bad book. It's just not a book for me. I mean, it's a book about fire horses. Like, come on. Like, I was, like, sold. Fire horses, tell me no more. Give me the book. However, this is very, very much a YA book. I feel like the intended audience here are, like, 14, 15, 16-year-olds. And if I was, like, 14 and I read this book, hot damn would I have loved it. So I just feel like this is for a much younger audience than me, who is a grown-ass lady. So, like, I wasn't really connecting to it all that much. There was, like, things I just wasn't, like, picking up on that I think I may have picked up on better if I was younger, like, more the intended audience for this. So this isn't a case of it being a bad book. It's not a book for me. I'm obviously not the intended audience, and that's okay. However, I think if you do have 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, maybe 13-year-old kids, they probably really like this, so I do recommend it for a younger audience. Basically, this world, there are Ashlords, and they're like the ruling class, and then they have like Davidians, and then they have this other group of people, and they kind of like, the Ashlords pick on them. And they're like, hey, that's not cool, you know, generic YA fantasy tropes. And every year there's this big horse race. It's a phoenix horse race. So basically their horses are magical and there's alchemy and like they're made of freaking fire, which is so cool. I love it. I love fire horses. And we're following three characters in particular. And they are Imelda, Pippa, and Adrian. This time I remember all three of them. Good for me. So Imelda is like a poor kid wrong side of the tracks who's like, I'm gonna go in this race, yeah. And then you have Adrian, who's very much the renegade, I'm gonna start a revolution. And then Pippa is of the ruling class. And one thing in particular, I was reading this and like it kept really bothering me because I don't understand the reasoning for it. Imelda and Adrian's chapters are written in first person. They're using I, those pronouns. Like, I said this and I felt this way. Cool, I totally get first person. And then you have Pippa's chapters, which are written in second person because they're using the pronoun you. So it says, you are standing in the room and the person comes in and you know what they're gonna ask you. Why is Pippa in second person and no one else is? Like, I don't understand the reasoning for it. Maybe there was, because it seems like a choice, like a distinctive choice to only write one character in second person. But like, why is it Pippa? Like, I don't know. Because she's like, basically, you know, the heiress. She grew up rich. She's part of the Ashlords. Like, she has her own things going on here. But like, it bothered me that like it had first person, second person. You're like, why is that like that? So that was another reason why I was just like, it was just bothering me to the point where I'm like, I don't care. Like, it bothered me that much. And then, you know, they're in the race and like things happen and there's betrayals and then like truths are found and then they like unlikely allies and all that jazz that you have in like YA fantasy, and that's dope. That's fine. It's just like, being a grown-ass lady, this probably isn't the story for me. It's not complex enough for me as a grown-ass lady. However, probably very, very good for teenagers, like 13 and up. Yes, they would have loved this. So props for that. I feel like for its intended audience, this is a very, very good book. I have to give credit where credit's due because there's freaking fire horses in this, and that's dope. So I do like the world building because they have fire horses and there's alchemy and magic, and all that stuff is really thought out. Like there's different like chemicals you need to make different type of reactions, so it's a little sciencey, and the world is very well thought out. I like the world building. That was solid. Fire horses, dope. It's weird with the perspective switch where first person, second person. Why is that in second person? It really bothered me. And also, it like the characters aren't as complex as I would expect in an adult book. But for teens, probably pretty good. So it's not the book for me, but it's the book for somebody. It's not you, it's me. Basically, that's my final verdict on this. Next up, I read Fate of the Fallen by Kel Kade. This one was kind of pleasantly surprising. Honestly, it is an adult fantasy, definitely adult, not YA at all. And the really cool thing I really enjoyed about this story is that it's told entirely in sarcasm. This is a story about, you know, a prophecy and the chosen one and saving the world from evil, and they make merciless fun of it. And I love that. They see the chosen one trope and they make fun of it for an entire book. And I was like into it. I loved how sarcastic it was. It was great. There's a character named Matthias. He's like totally the chosen one. Everyone's just like, yeah, Matthias, he's great. He's the chosen one. And then you have his best friend, Aslo. And he's a forester. And in this world, like foresters are very respected. They basically take care of the forest and the earth and the grass and the plants and the world they live in. And like people are like, yeah, we need trees for shit. You're cool, forester. So foresters are very respected people. And he's off on this journey, and like I want to say things because it happens so early in the story, but I feel like it's a spoiler, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut. But it's very hard to review this book without saying that spoiler. Okay, so I really can't review this without saying that. Shoot. Let's just say this whole chosen one thing doesn't go right. Everyone's just kind of like, well, I guess we should all just give up because this whole chosen one thing isn't gonna work out. And he's just like, am I insane? Like, you giving up means everyone's gonna die, and everyone's just cool with this. You don't want to like try to maybe not die? And everyone's like, well, I mean, the chosen one thing didn't work out, so meh. And Aslo's just like, am I insane? So Aslo is a great character. He's very sarcastic. He's very practical, kind of. I don't know. I really liked it. It has a great cast of characters. They're very snarky. Basically, this whole story is sarcasm, and I love it intensely. It's very short, very quick read, and parts of it I wasn't sure if I liked it, honestly, because I was just like, this is dumb. But then I'm like, it's making fun of it. That's why it's dumb, because they're making fun of it. It's sarcastic. And I was like, yes. It is kind of a talent to write an entire fantasy book sarcastically, and I appreciated it. So I found it very funny. It's not maybe laugh out loud funny, but it is like, oh, that's clever funny. You know what I mean? So I do really recommend it. I don't know if I reviewed this well at all because I can't say certain things of the plot, but they're very important pieces. And oh gosh, it's so good. Just recommend reading it, especially if you like snark, if you like fantasy stories. They're kind of meta. It's making fun of a chosen one trope the entire book. You'll probably get real into this. It's actually pretty good. I liked it. I had a good time with this. Last book I read in the beginning of March is Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. This is the continuation of the First Law world. The trilogy's over. This is what's happening after the trilogy. And I was obviously recommended this highly from Leanna's library. She's like, you have to read it, it's the best one. And I don't know if I agree that it's the best one. I had a good time with it. Joe Abercrombie is just, it's like you either like it or you don't. The fact of the matter is, Joe Abercrombie writes these stories where they're grim, dark fantasy for a reason. Basically, anyone who has who's optimistic and has hope or tries to do the right thing is probably going to fail spectacularly and just have their heart ripped out. There's not a lot of silver linings to be had. There's a lot of gallows humor though, so you know, it's not gonna have really a happy ending. None of his books really have happy endings. They have funny bits where it's just it's funny how insane what's happening is. But yeah, this one was a little darker than I was expecting. I mean, I knew it was gonna be dark going in. This is a revenge story, so I was expecting dark. But there was some things he did to characters in here that I was just like, oh, that just hurt my feelings as a person. Basic gist of the story here. We're following this woman named Monza. She was betrayed and left for dead and didn't die. So she's like, I'm gonna kill all those motherfuckers who try to kill me. So she's like, I'm putting together a crew. So she grabs some other people to help her out on this journey of revenge. And the book is told in 7 parts because there are 7 people she needs to kill off. And yeah, I mean, it's well constructed. It is a standalone, which is nice. You don't have to worry about having the revenge continue through another book. It is one and done, so that's good. It's a single serving revenge story. And I mean, it does get very gory and violent and dark. Very dark at points. So if you like lighthearted fantasy or something with magic and maybe the heroes will prevail, this isn't the book for you. This is the book where things end, but there's not really any heroes. There's no real winners. Things just kind of resolve. So that's just kind of Joe Abercrombie in a nutshell though. But did I enjoy this? Yes, I did. I gave it 4 stars. It doesn't mean it's not well written. It's well crafted. And I did enjoy it. It had, basically the plot is well executed, well told. I liked it. It's just it was like kicking a guy while he's down. So I don't know, maybe my inner Hufflepuff was coming out and I was just like, hey, play fair, not cool. It kind of hurt my feelings as a human being, but still good. I can't fault it for that. I knew what I was getting into. It's a revenge story. Things aren't going to end happily. So yeah, it is what it is. I did enjoy it. I'm going to keep reading on in this series, in this world. This is basically an extended universe version of it. I am going to keep reading. I do like his writing. His gallows humor is just very dark, so be prepared. Alright, so those are all the books I've read so far in March, and it's been a pretty good reading month. This whole quarantine thing has been great for reading. If only that is the positive I'm getting out of it, great. At least I'm getting some reading done, and that's good. So, you know, stay safe out there, please be healthy. Social distancing sucks, but hey, you know what you don't have to distance yourself from? Books. Books are great. Let me know in the comment down below, have you read any of these books? And if so, did you like them? Did you dislike them? What were your thoughts? Or, hey, how are you passing the time during social distancing quarantine periods? What are you doing to pass the time while you're stuck in your house? If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon.